The Tesla Cybertruck is arriving very soon as the most unique electric vehicle to hit the market so far. And to power the gigantic stainless steel machine will be a very unique new battery that Tesla has named the Cybercell. So what sets this new battery apart from the rest, and will it be enough to follow through on Elon Musk's big claims for the Cybertruck? We know that the Cybercell is a variation on Tesla's existing 4680 cell design. We have kind of fallen into this routine of naming battery cells by their dimensions, so this one is 46 millimeters in diameter by 80 millimeters in length, and that's compared to Tesla's more commonly used 2170 cell in the Model 3 and Model Y. If you can guess the dimensions of that battery, then you've got this down and we're ready to move on. Now, unfortunately, just referring to a battery cell by its exterior dimensions doesn't actually tell us anything about the performance characteristics of said battery. This is one of those situations where it's what's on the inside that matters. So the 4680 as we know it so far is a lithium-ion battery with nickel, cobalt, and manganese cathode materials and a graphite anode material. This is different from the 4680 that Elon presented back at Battery Day in 2020. That particular design was for a nickel-manganese cathode with zero cobalt content and an anode made with both graphite and silicon material. That particular battery cell has yet to materialize, but it may still in the future. The current iteration of the 4680, we can call it Generation 1, has only been used in very limited volume for one short-lived and obscure variation of the Tesla Model Y that was manufactured at Giga Texas but isn't available anymore. Luckily, we got just enough of the Gen 1 4680 to understand the performance level that Tesla has achieved so far. This gives us a baseline to compare the new Cybercell against. One very smart user on X.com who goes by Troy Teslike has worked out some calculations on the energy performance of the 4680 Gen 1 cell. His math works out that each 4680 weighs in at 355 grams per cell, and the individual cells can store 81.2 watt-hours of energy. And if we know both of those numbers, then we can work out the energy density of the Gen 1 battery, which is the most effective measurement of a battery's raw potential. We have to consider that the efficiency of the entire vehicle system in which the battery is used will have a significant impact on the real-world performance, so we're just looking at the cell in isolation right now. Keep that in mind. So this math puts the energy density of the Gen 1 4680 at 229 watt-hours per kilogram of battery weight. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's bring in another baseline measurement. The Panasonic-made 2170 cell from the Model Y long range has a calculated energy density of 262 watt-hours per kilogram. So that gives the new 4680 cells 13% less energy density than the older and more commonly used Panasonic cell. We've also seen some fairly well-documented information from early adopters of the 4680 battery-powered Model Y that the new cars do tend to charge a fair bit more slowly than a regular Model Y. The 4680 battery packs aren't drawing the full 250 kilowatt power output from the V3 supercharger stalls, and they very quickly throttle the charging power down to a relatively low level compared to the 2170 equipped packs. Now, charging is subjective. There are a lot of factors that will affect charging speed, and this is something that likely has more to do with software than it does with hardware. So, therefore, it can be improved over time without having to buy a whole new car. Either way, that's not a great result all around, but it's not exactly terrible either. We are comparing a brand new battery design by a brand new battery maker against a tried and true design from one of the finest Japanese electronics manufacturers. Now, this wouldn't be such a big deal if Elon Musk hadn't come out and hyped the battery up 3 years ago with some sky-high promises, and then if afterwards a bunch of YouTubers who don't really understand what we're talking about piled in and massively overhyped the hype for another 2 years after that. So it's largely our fault. Sorry about that. Anyway, what does this mean for the Cybertruck? Well, basically, if you were to try and build a Cybertruck with the existing 4680 cells as a power source, then you wouldn't get anywhere near the kind of performance that Tesla was originally promising for the Cybertruck, which was over 300 miles of range with the dual motor setup and over 500 miles with the tri-motor variant. The Gen 1 4680 cells would just be too big and heavy to fit the necessary amount of energy into the Cybertruck chassis to achieve those numbers, which brings us to... I've got something really cool to share with you that uses cutting-edge technology and everything we know about sound to create personalized soundscapes in real time designed to help you relax, focus, and sleep, all made possible by our sponsor, Endel. Endel offers 3 main modes: relax, focus, and sleep. Relax mode calms your mind and creates feelings of comfort and safety. Focus mode boosts your productivity and helps you concentrate for longer periods. And sleep mode soothes you into a deep sleep with soft, gentle sounds. Trust me, I've been using Endel every night to fall asleep for the last 2 years, and it really works. I couldn't imagine going back to sleep regularly. Endel is not just informed by science, created with science, and backed by science, it's even helping people manage symptoms of ADHD, tinnitus, and sleep disorders. So if you're struggling with any of these issues, I highly recommend you download and try Endel. Endel uses its patented core technology, Endel Pacific, to adapt in real time to personal inputs like location, weather, and even your heart rate. The soundscape you get is not just personalized, it's optimized for maximum effect based on real-time inputs, neuroscience, and psychoacoustics principles. So if you need help falling asleep, want to increase your focus, or are struggling to relax, be one of the first 100 people to download Endel by clicking the link below, and you'll get a free week of these awesome audio experiences. I couldn't be more excited to bring you such an innovative product I use daily. Give it a try, and let's keep striving for healthier, happier, and more focused lives by using Endel today. Earlier this year, Tesla's VP of Powertrain and Energy Engineering, Drew Baglino, dropped a glimmer of hope for the Cybertruck, saying to Tesla investors, quote, "Here in Texas, we are preparing to launch our Cybertruck cell, which has 10% higher energy density than current production, and that was accomplished through process and mechanical design optimization." Okay, so good news, but also weird news. Here's the deal. 10% more energy is great, but that still puts the Cybercell as a lower performing battery as compared to the existing 2170. Going back to our Troy test-like math chart, the Cybercell should now be carrying 89.4 watt-hours of energy per cell, assuming the weight has remained the same or similar. That gives us a projected 252 watt-hours per kilogram. And remember, that 2170 Panasonic cells are still up higher at 262 watt-hours per kilogram. So the Cybercell is better than the Gen 1 4680, yet still worse than the regular Model Y battery. If we try and apply that to a real-world scenario, say, for example, if a Cybertruck was made with the same 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack capacity of the Model X, then we could expect the Cybertruck to achieve just around 250 miles of range. And here is Troy's math to support that claim. He says that in order to achieve a range of 325 miles, which would be in line with the performance of other Tesla vehicles, like the Model 3 and Model Y, then Cybertruck would require a 130 kilowatt-hour battery pack. And this is working on the optimistic assumption that Cybertruck will have a similar drag coefficient to the existing Tesla lineup. If Cybertruck proves to be significantly less aerodynamic, then it's obviously going to need an even bigger battery pack to achieve an acceptable level of performance. A realistic estimate might be that a Cybertruck using the Cybercell would need something like a 160 kilowatt-hour battery just to support a range of over 300 miles as advertised for the dual-motor variant. And if we try and scale that up to the claim of over 500 miles range in the top-tier Cybertruck, then we've probably ended up with a battery that would be just too large to fit in between the wheels, even on a pickup truck-sized frame. So again, that's not a terrible result, but it's not great either. Typically, I would say that range doesn't actually matter as much as people think that it does, but the Cybertruck isn't typical, and it's not going to be used for typical driving tasks either. When you factor in activities like towing and off-roading and all of the other high-demand functions that the Cybertruck is literally built to do, then you really do need a large amount of range as baseline. I'd say 350 miles would be a kind of minimum requirement for a Cybertruck that was actually going to be used for truck stuff. Now, most people who drive trucks do not actually do truck stuff with them. They just drive to the grocery store and terrorize pedestrians, but couldn't back up a trailer to save their own lives. I feel like a lot of these people reserved Cybertruck, so maybe this doesn't actually matter. Either way, what does this mean for the Cybertruck right now? Well, it looks like Tesla will be able to deliver on their promise of a dual-motor Cybertruck with over 300 miles of range. That's probably what they have been building for the past couple of months and what will be delivered to customers later this year. But in order to live up to Elon Musk's promises of a 3 or even 4-motor Cybertruck with over 500 miles of range, then we're going to need yet another battery upgrade, the Gen 2 Cybercell. Is that something we should be counting on? Probably. Let's go back to Drew's quote. He says that Tesla achieved the 10% energy increase through process and mechanical design optimization. So what does that mean? Well, we can take a look at this diagram that was published in a Tesla patent application. It shows 2 different constructions of a battery cell terminal. If we assume that we are looking at Gen 1 4680 on the left and Gen 2 or Cybercell on the right, then we can see the Gen 2 construction of the battery terminal is much more compact. Now, I'm not an engineer, but I think we can safely deduce that the Gen 2 design change was simply fit all of that same stuff into a smaller physical space, and by doing that, they've freed up more volume for the jelly roll, which is a fun name for the active battery material. We can probably safely assume that there is about 10% more jelly roll in the Cybercell than the original 4680, which would explain the 10% increase in energy capacity. I think that qualifies as a mechanical design optimization. And this is good news because it shows that Tesla has managed to improve the performance of their cell without actually improving on the chemistry. And we know that there definitely is still room for improvement on the chemistry side of the 4680. Going back again to the cell design that was proposed at Battery Day, Elon and Drew made a big deal about the silicon content of the battery anode. And we know that our current benchmark cell, the Panasonic 2170, uses a combination of silicon and graphite as its anode material. But the Gen 1 4680 was found to have a pure graphite anode with no silicon at all. Now, this likely has to do with the dry battery electrode process that Tesla is using to manufacture the 4680. We covered that in a recent Battery Day video. You can check it out later for more details. Adding silicon to a battery anode is known to increase the energy density of the cell. So we can say for sure that if Tesla can add silicon to their battery chemistry, they can still increase the energy density of the Cybercell, maybe by another 10%, maybe by more, I don't know, but this does show evidence that Tesla is nowhere near the limits of their new battery cell format. In fact, they're likely just getting started. And we can see that illustrated in a recent post from Tesla on X.com that celebrates the 20 millionth 4680 cell produced at Giga Texas. And as far as we know, the Giga Texas line is exclusively producing the Cybercell variation of that battery. So, what does that mean? Well, we know that 4680 production at Giga Texas began sometime right around the start of this year. And we know that on June 16th, Tesla announced the 10 millionth cell produced at Giga Texas. So it took roughly from January to June to build the first 10 million batteries. Then it took from June to October to build the second 10 million batteries. So that shows an increase in production volume over time. Not a massive one, but an increase for sure. And we can definitely assume that the ramp-up is still very much in progress, and the 30 millionth cell could very likely arrive by the end of this year. And one more time falling back on Troy's math because he's very good at it and I'm not. If we look at June versus October production, Tesla built 10 million battery cells in 117 days, which is 85,470 cells per day. That's a lot of batteries, but on the scale of electric vehicle manufacturing, it's actually not a particularly high yield. So if we go by our previous assumptions about the Cybertruck battery pack size, then Tesla would be averaging enough cells to build about 450 Cybertrucks per week on the low end and maybe 650 per week on the high end, which again, sounds like a lot of vehicles, but if you annualize that run rate, it only works out to around 34,000 trucks per year, and at that rate, it would take the better part of a century to fill every existing Cybertruck pre-order. So, what have we learned? Well, things seem to be going just fine for Cybertruck production at Giga Texas. They are definitely on track to deliver on the mid-tier Cybertruck that was promised so many years ago. But there definitely is still room for improvement, that is for sure, and it's still reasonable to say that Tesla will have the capability to rise to meet even the highest expectations for the Cybertruck. But it's going to take some time and a lot of work along the way. And this is a company that is no stranger to doing hard things. So the future remains bright. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up today if you liked it. That is so important for getting our content out to more people. If you enjoy the content, then you'd probably also enjoy our weekly newsletter. So sign up with the link down below at theteslaspace.com. A huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters who are listed on the screen now. You help us make the best content we can, and we really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.